king here, pawn here, and a king here. Perfect. So, ending number 1, the rule of the square. So the question is, can this pawn promote by itself? And there's the rule of the square, so it's basically if the basically you form a square like this from the pawn to the uh, end of the board where it would potentially queen. And if the king can get inside that square, basically touch the square at all, then the king can catch the pawn before it queens or promotes. It's not always a queen, but like 99% of the time it's you promote to a queen. However, this is a little misleading because technically the king is in the square, but this is not this is not taking for the fact that this pawn is on the second rank and it cannot and it can't and it can what am I thinking of? It can go 2 squares on its first move. So if we move the pawn here, all of a sudden here's the square. And so if the king moves, it's still not in the square, so the pawn will promote. And I'll just play it out like that. The king is 1 spot too late. So yes, in this position, the white pawn can promote because the king is not in the square. Now, if the king were here, then if we make a square, no, make a square like this. Because since I'm accounting for the fact that the pawn can move 2 squares on this first move, the king is already in the square. So the king can catch the pawn this time. What happens? So if I go here, the king arrives just in time to stop the pawn. Instead of just a game of can the king catch the pawn, we need to try to block the king from promoting. So if if the pawn alone running is not an option, what you need to do is escort it with your own king. When possible, and this is a direct quote from the book, when possible, the stronger side's king will prevent its rival from standing in front of the pawn. If he succeeds, the pawn promotes. So in this game, the correct move is king to c7 here because it blocks these 3 squares. It forms a wall. So the black king has to go here. But then the black king can't get to the pawn in time because by the time the black king gets here, the pawn gets here, which is in the territory of our own king here. And so the pawn will easily promote and there's nothing that black can do.